Welcome to the Private Equity Experience Podcast, your backstage pass to the strategies, stories, and secrets that drive value in the PE universe. No filters, no fluff, just straight talk and expert insights to help you navigate the private equity world with confidence. And now your hosts, Ed Barton, Rory Liebhart, and Emily Sander.
Rory can sound like Demi Moore as he answers these questions with his nasal situation.
I'm definitely not tip top, but hey, we'll make it happen.
You look good. You sound good. It's all
There we
good,
go.
Big
There
Red.
we
Here
go.
we go.
Yeah.
Lightning round questions on the Private Equity Experience Podcast. Ed and Rory, morning brainstorm or midnight inspiration?
Oh, morning. I'm a morning guy.
Yeah, definitely morning.
I'm pretty much brain dead after about 6 p.m. That's a fact, and that's getting worse as I get older. So, yeah.
And Ed, you've always been a morning guy.
Always. Yeah,
Morning.
and that's not going to change.
No.
Do you make decisions faster or slower when the stakes are high?
Great questions.
I'm definitely faster.
Yeah.
Definitely faster.
Me too.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Stakes are high is qualifying. Is it in a crisis or if the stakes are high? Because if the stakes are really high and it's not time sensitive, I may ruminate on something for a while. But I was trained in my first career to make rapid decisions and then adjust as you go rather than
Army officer.
Yep.
Army officer. What were you, a Colonel Barton? Major Barton?
Major
Barton. Got it. Okay. What's something you've built from scratch that actually worked?
Great question. Also, that actually worked.
I got some IKEA furniture that actually, that's not even from scratch. I mean, I truly am not like a from scratch person. I'm a fix it and make it better thing. My from scratches are definitely not memorable.
You know your leg of the race, and it's like down.
Well, I'd say maybe an unconventional answer is, creating some forms of art and also crafts. So back in the day, I used to, create some types of jewelry and things like that, which, was functional and looked cool and things like that. Yeah, I did.
I did not know this about you, Rory. You made
rings
jewelry
and stuff like that. Yep.
What?
Yeah, I used to have a crafty streak to me, a little more artistic streak. Maybe it's been suppressed over the years a little bit, but yeah, I think, and part of the reason why it works is because it's kind of subjective. It's not mechanical, it's not electric. It's like there's a lot of margin for error. So maybe that's why it worked.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. All right,
I'd like to get back to that part of me, actually. Maybe that's another podcast.
Artistic, Rory, artistic big rigs. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Deadlift, custom rings, and financial structuring.
There you go.
All in one.
Yeah.
What is your comfort TV show when your brain's in overdrive?
I just go down to the YouTube rabbit hole on so many different things. Like I watch concerts from musicians I like. I watch my thing these days is like I watch these YouTube videos of like people that live completely off the grid in Alaska that they basically film their life and building cabins and shit like that.
Whoa.
So like you can tell where my mind is. It's like I want to get out of here. I want to be like on my own on an island on the side of a mountain by myself.
Yeah,
Making rings.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think I would echo the. I don't know when the last time I watched live TV outside of a sporting event was.
Yeah, college football for sure, but
I will fire up I've got YouTube playlists of music.
Yeah,
that I'll just firing up the 80s and 90s playlists, and that will transport me elsewhere. Or I go down the YouTube rabbit hole of car videos, or how do I change the rear differential on a 79 Mercedes? That's fascinating.
Yeah,
of course you do.
Yeah,
of course you do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. One gem I found is Clarkson's Farm, which there's this whole personality. He's famous in the UK, like Jeremy Clarkson, who
I know who this is. Yeah.
Who he's known for a car show, which Ed, you might know him, but he's took over his family farm, like hundreds of acres of farmland, and he runs it himself. not particularly well, but hilariously, and you actually learn about farming.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's like comedy, but you actually learn something. So it's just a nice, super scenic and everything. So
Yeah,
that's mine.
that's awesome.
Marksman's Farm.
Right on.
Cool. So those were like kind of some warm up questions, but
Yeah.
we're here to talk about like why is PE interested in founder led businesses, and like how do they actually
Yeah.
do that? Like the tactical and practical pieces of this. But
Yeah.
just to set the stage, why is PE interested in founder led businesses in the first place?
Well, I'll go and then I know Ed's got some insights here because I mean, we've both been part of these scenarios multiple times. But what I've observed is basically like any investment, you want to buy low and sell high eventually. We talked about it before, like PE doesn't mate for life. I always use that term, but I love the term. And what I mean by that is that, think of yourself as a business owner, you're bootstrapping your business, you're doing it yourself. It's like you get it to a certain point. You know your business really well. There's potential there, but basically you need somehow to be able to unlock the value further. And that's often where a PE group will come in and say, I see what you see, founder. You're a very visionary person, or you and your team are very effective in this little, foothold you've established for yourself. We will help you. We will bring the scale and we'll make that happen. And they say that, but what they really mean is, this person has not found the ability to unlock the potential of their business. We can get them there and we can profit from that in a big way.
Yeah, I think the other piece is normally a founder-led business has got two elements that are holding it back. It's either going to be capital or talent.
Yeah.
And so the private equity firm, as we've talked about, generally has an abundance of capital to put to work.
Yep.
And they normally have a Rolodex full of talent. Now, that talent may displace the founder at some point, but they've got this Rolodex of talent.
Yeah.
And so they're able to kind of look at these things. And like Rory said, the founder-led businesses also tend to sell cheaper than kind of institutionally owned businesses, because founders, if you go to a founder and you go, hey, this business is worth $30 million, they're going to be like, well, that's great. That's awesome. It may actually be worth 40, 45, but they get excited. As a matter of fact, PE firms will constantly be kind of trolling with the, hi, I'm, junior associate. They make the, inbound calls unsolicited. Have you thought about monetizing? Have you thought, I still get them for Fusion Zone. I'm like, no, this company transacted twice to private equity. We're done. This is over. But that's those two elements, they bring talent and treasure, so to speak, to the private or to the founder-led business. That's generally what's holding a founder-led business back from significant growth. So they try and buy it cheap. And then they also try and go, okay, how do I juice this thing so that I can get a multiple on that investment that I just made by growing it rapidly?
Yeah, exactly.
And so when we're talking about like buying it cheap or undervalued, it's not necessarily that anything's wrong, although there could be.
Not at all.
It's just like there's upside.
In fact, the smartest private equity firms I know tend to not buy stuff that's broken. I mean, the one stuff that's broken, they do it. That is their business. They have a Rolodex. You are going to get displaced the day that deal closes.
Yeah.
And, but those are more your vulture capitalists and more turnaround private equity funds. The typical private equity fund is a growth fund where they look at it and go, this business is undervalued, not because it's, run poorly. It's undervalued because it's not achieving its potential.
Yeah, it's pre-scale.
So
it's kind of at an inflection point, perhaps, or just
and
before it, maybe, actually.
Yeah, so we're going to pay as if the business is going to continue along this trajectory, and then we're going to bring a couple of these, talent or treasure components or both there to, as Rory said, kind of hit that inflection point and drive growth up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the premise. How do they actually do that?
Well, it starts with, you got to be totally aligned on that future, right? So if you're working with a founder, let's say you're a PE group and you're looking to buy a company with founder, if you have completely different visions for the business, the likelihood of it working out is pretty low. Like, you have to see the same things. And, I would say that my personal experience is that I've never seen things go exactly as planned in those early discussions. It always changes, but you have to have some fundamental alignment on what that future looks like. And I think a lot of that means the founder needs to be honest about where they're at, what's holding them back, or whether maybe maybe they're even that kind of a conservative person where they just want to do really well and grind out a really nice profit, but in a low growth environment. But they may need to be convinced by a PE group that they can achieve much bigger quantums of profit by basically, unlocking the growth. So it starts with very honest conversations about where each side is coming from, what they see and how they view the business. And if you can find alignment there, that's a good place to start.
And so assuming they have alignment,
Yep.
like once they get in there, because we talked about some of this before, like once they get in there, like what are some actual levers that people can turn to?
Well, a lot of times what I've seen is the private equity team will identify during the diligence process. So this is a lot of this is they're formulating during the diligence process. That's why that's a critical kind of marriage piece, not just with the turnover bunch of documents, but as Rory said, there's alignment. In my experience, there's two areas that the private equity folks tend to look at and go, here's what we're going to bring to the table. We're either going to bring technologists, technology leverage. So that maybe, you need additional growth capital, you need additional skills and those kind of things. But we see that
whatever.
There's a technology gap here that we're going to be able to help you fill to hit that inflection point. So they focus on the technology investment. And again, my background's largely tech-enabled services businesses. So it's going to be biased a little bit. The other one is they look at it from a front-end sales perspective and they go, look, you guys have done an amazing job getting, kind of cornering this little niche market. There's three other areas that are parallel to it or adjacent or market adjacent or a regional, and we could go national, but you need to have different sales leadership. You need a new sales strategy. Which again is going to require capital and talent
and knowledge and know-how. And I think some founders don't know how to actually expand horizontally or vertically. They're just like really focused,
And so those two areas have been my experience where the private equity firms will come in and go, look, we're going to make an investment in you currently. And we've got this additional pot of, now I'll leave the third piece off. These are the typical, this additional pot of capital that's available. And we're going to develop jointly as part of the process, the technology plan, the go-to-market sales plan to kind of push this to the next level at that inflection point.
I have noticed that pot of capital tends to sometimes be fictitious.
Ephemeral?
Yeah, a little. I've never seen it actually formally committed per se. It's theoretical.
It's at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, we actually
saw
saw
capital might just be any operating profits you throw off the business, and that's your pot of capital.
Yeah, we did it at Fusion Zone. We did have a soft roll-up strategy that was part of the acquisition.
Yeah, there you go.
So the private equity firm did stroke checks twice to acquire small tuck-in investments. The one I thought was an extraordinarily profitable one. The other one was not.
Yeah.
But it was a good, that's that third element where they go, look, you've got a really good, I think we've talked about platform company here. Yeah. And what we're going to do is bring in the additional capital, the diligence capabilities, plus the technology integration, the sales pieces, et cetera.
Yeah.
And we're going to do some, tuck-in acquisitions to really help bolster the growth trajectory of the business. So that's the third piece. That's actually
M&A and sort of vision for that is absolutely what a PE partner can bring. And not only that, but additional personnel that can join your team that maybe has that expertise beyond what the founder has done or has experience with. They might get their ass handed to them if they try to go down that path themselves. So yeah, that M&A and the expertise around that is a key way to scale through partnership with PE. Definitely.
And some of the stuff that I've been involved with is like probably under the umbrella of professionalizing the organization, which Rory, you've talked about that term, but like governance and rhythm of business and leadership meetings and board meetings and board packages and all these touch points and reporting and all these.
Well, let's talk about that and like break that down a little more. So what does it mean to professionalize an organization in practical terms? And some of my first foray as executive leader has been being brought in to company in that PE transition, worked with both of you, which was great at that time, in that regard. But what does that mean? It means that, like, oftentimes you have the founders is the CEO, the COO, head of sales, human resources officer, you name it. They kind of do it all. They may have a group of people that kind of carry out tasks. So what it means to scale an organization is to, if you're serious about it, is expanding leadership with the capabilities and the expertise and the relationships to make that happen. And so take another step further. What does that mean? So you might have, in a founder-led company, the CEO, founder, and maybe an accountant that's running QuickBooks. Let's just use that as an example. But to sort of support a growth business that may be expanding with product, with geography, with customer base, you probably need some better expertise, especially if you're going to start taking on more, complex treasury. Maybe you're going international, this, that, and the other thing. You might need a VP of finance or CFO. You also might need a legitimate head of sales that can cover different categories, different geographies, different customer bases, and maybe you're pivoting as well, and you are looking to get into a market that you haven't been before because you see the value there. It's adding the key pieces at the leadership level that you can then fill in to support that with additional, call it functional staff. But a lot of it is just like, you think when somebody thinks of an organization, they think, oh yeah, they must have a CEO, chief of staff, CFO, blah, 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 blah. But, so many of these companies that are acquired don't have any of those things. And they don't even know what that means until they actually partner up with PE group and say they believe in what the PE group is telling them. Hey, to unlock this potential, you need to get the right person out.
It's surprising that just leadership team meetings, weekly leadership team meetings
structure,
are like,
good point.
What?
Excellent.
We're going to sit and talk about like what's going on as a group? Like what?
What a meeting.
Crazy. And like, as chief of staff, I ran sales operations for a while. I stood it up and then handed it off. But it was like a sales pipeline with stages of the sale, like so people can track where deals are
data driven, not just gut instinct.
It's just like some of these things are basic, but if it's not there, it's like game changing. It's like, oh my gosh, like now we can see what's coming. Like, yes, delivery teams, operations teams, you like that because you can build your capacity around what's coming down the pipeline.
Like very few businesses that achieve, $100 million, $1 billion, revenue run rates and things like that are able to do so without a tremendous amount of infrastructure with people and technology. More technology today maybe than ever, but like you can't accomplish those things the same way a founder built their business to, $5 million, $10 million, which in its own right is very impressive. But like if you're serious about growth and achieving the max potential of business, you've got to get support. You got to have the concrete foundation and the kind of iron, like rungs and things like put in there. You have to make it stand on its own with support systems.
And I remember like this can be relatively straightforward things. Like when we were at G2, a place we all worked at, and I was running client management, designating our clients as in different tiers. Like here's our strategics and here's our mid tier and here's our smaller ones, in that way. And then here's like by industry or kind of by like different groupings by region. So just like mapping these things in Salesforce, that's what we use for our CRM. All this stuff was just, okay, now we can say, let's look at the data for our mid-tier EMEA clients for this one area. So just things like that, which aren't necessarily sexy, but it's like, if you want an EMEA strategy, you better know who your clients are, who your existing clients are now, and what kind of state they're in, if they're happy, if they're not, like what kind of products they have and what kind of products they need and don't have, all that stuff.
Yeah. The one thing I would generally say is founders, it's rare that you find the Bill Gates, the Michael Dells, where they are tactically proficient and strategically proficient. And a lot of times where the private equity firms will look to add value when they're doing the acquisition is they look for an exceptionally talented, tactically proficient team, and then go, okay, we're going to help overlay the strategy on this. And that's where a lot of this professionalization and institutionalization and those elements. They've got a team that knows how to build great widgets. They just don't know how to do it at scale. They don't know how to strategize about it. They just know how to make great widgets.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity where the private equity firms, again, they look to buy low because you don't have a strategic thinker and they haven't been able to unlock the strategic value of the business. And then the private equity firm comes in and goes, look, we've got the tools, people, kind of talent and treasure. We've got the tools to be able to put the strategic wrapper on this tactically exceptional business and drive that forward. So it's all the stuff Rory was just talking about, the foundational elements, the building the better mousetrap. But the ideal situation is one where you've got, you don't have a Michael Dell, you don't have a Bill Gates. You've got somebody who's really good at their core business, and then the private equity firm throws a strategic wrapper and structure over that and causes the business to grow and scale significantly.
Yeah, you want to do this efficiently, and I think what we talk about in our book is there's a playbook to this whole thing. Like every business in itself is unique, but the ingredients needed and the strategy and execution to grow a business and achieve the max potential, there is a playbook for it. Like, and PE has that playbook, and they've been there, done that. That's what they do. Founders are geniuses in their own right, but the structure and the expertise of PE, both from financial engineering, but also just governance and growth and sort of aligning to talent, things like that. There's a playbook to that. So imagine the power if you match those things up correctly, have alignment, you can make it happen. Whereas you might be spinning your wheels trying to do it yourself if you're not Michael Dell and Bill Gates.
Yeah, and like the thing I would add is there's the founder vision, like they're the visionary and they know their craft that way. There's the PE playbook. The middle part is a great chief of staff will design and architect the system that has to go in place for that particular founder, for that particular team,
that
for that particular time, for that particular PE group, and they can design it and make that run.
Yeah.
So,
No
I mean, that's where I get excited.
Absolutely.
But that's the place I live.
Yeah.
But you need all of those players and all of those people to make it go.
Yeah. And any amount of time that you don't waste is money you bank, basically, is the way I think about it. So if you have the right people, the process and technology, it sounds cliche, but and the right roadmap, like you will not waste time and money, basically.
And maybe we can break down technology a little bit more, because I know there's systems and tools. Like I know certain ERP companies partner with PE firms because the ERP is like the preferred partner of a PE firm. So they always are in the kind of RFP mix. But like ERPs and, you mentioned QuickBooks, or if you have to upgrade your kind of systems and tools that way, there's that side of things. And then there's also, to me, like the tech stack and perhaps a proprietary product of some kind and all of those types of things.
It's moving at a rapid clip. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, there's the what I would consider to be like your system of record for your business, and like for a lot of groups at an early stage, it's like a QuickBooks, and maybe you have a CRM, mostly Excel spreadsheets, but
sometimes it's like Joe's napkin.
Yeah, and then you graduate to, okay, I'm going to put in a, kind of sales module for Salesforce or, HubSpot or whatever, and, kind of start to integrate that. But then you just scales outward from there. You have massive enterprise systems that basically capture it all and visualize all the data in your systems and things like that. And now you're augmenting that with AI tools, which allow processing and insights to be gained, more efficiently and things like that, to where it's beyond my expertise level for sure. That's why, to have the right people in there to harness that is super important, especially now.
There's also there's a space for, and like Alex Papadopoulos, who we all know and all love, was our COO, CTO. Yeah. He's very, very good technically, and he can also communicate to non-technical audiences, which is
a unicorn.
Which is like amazing. But you have to have that, and a lot of people don't. So I feel like when you're plussing up your roster, sometimes it's about getting the type of people who can tell the story or communicate to other stakeholders what their group or what the technology is doing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, even if you're not a tech company yourself, you still use tech to run your company and to support your company. So yeah, ideally you have sort of utility players that have a specific domain, but they can kind of speak the language of other functional areas. And the more you have that, the more cohesion you have. I've worked for companies. I think G2 is one of those companies where you had a lot of good utility players working there at the leadership level. I've worked for other companies that did not, and I could tell you that things move faster and with less friction when you have folks that can kind of speak a few different business languages, so to speak, and articulate that. Makes
and those folks, you mentioned technologists, but really the two areas where that tends to be most critical and is most efficient in organizations is technology and finance, where folks have tended to be technical experts in their field, and as they progress in their career, they need to become far more business generalists, understand the business and understand how their function area interacts with others. And where companies have tended to fail have been the technologists live in technologist land and don't ever kind of really interact well with others. They don't play well with others, and finance is the same way.
Yep.
There's incredibly talented CFOs who are incredibly poor at their jobs because they're talented technically and exceptionally poor from a business perspective, communications perspective, getting to know the business. They live in a spreadsheet, and other folks live in a tech stack.
Right.
And that up leveling is where a lot of people come to me for the coaching, where it's like, Emily, we just got bought by PE. Number one, what just happened? And number two, different things are being asked of me, and I don't know how to speak that language essentially. And it's like, okay, here's how we do that. Also, when it's like silos, you need a chief of staff. Chief of staff will bridge that for you. Chief of staff will see across the department lines and all those things, bring it together.
In fact, it's really interesting. That was, and Rory probably remembers because this was before chief of staff was a thing. But I made Karina essentially my chief of staff at my first CEO gig because I needed somebody who could tie all the pieces together. I think you've used the analogy, Emily, that it's like you got a 6-pack of cans and the chief of staff is a plastic ring thing that holds it all together.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily see it, but it's there and it's holding the whole thing together. And that's
100%.
Again, there's a couple key positions, I think, from that talent and treasure piece. And what I'm hearing now is more and more private equity firms are requesting/requiring a chief of staff hire for the CEO to help them with this transition into a more institutionally and kind of strategically functional organization. And I think that's a critical move.
No doubt.
Yeah, they are for sure. So many chiefs of staff are like, Emily, my boss said, like the board said they had to get a chief of staff. And so now I've been brought in. I'm like, okay, so let's go to this rodeo. How do you know that you're successfully professionalizing the org? What kind of things are different after versus before?
Well, I would say very simply, if you're achieving the results of the business plan you put in front of yourself as a group, as a company, as a unit, between management and ownership, if you're doing the right things and you're succeeding, that gives you a good indication of whether that's working for you. If you're not, then you got to look within and say, what's going on here? What's not working? Why is that? Probably don't have alignment. This is all assuming that the thesis of whether you have a product market fit and customers that'll buy your product and stuff is working. So if that fails to launch, that means it probably wasn't. You weren't even on the solid footing to begin with. But if you have that and you're just not growing or becoming more profitable, then some of the links in the chains that are there with people, process, and technology not working. So you need to figure that out.
Yeah, I was actually good. I was laughing because when Rory was saying, you're achieving the plan that you laid out, having a plan that's laid out is kind of
that's a good step.
Personalization.
Yeah.
And then the other thing where I've noticed
real one.
Yeah, where I've noticed it has been the organization tends to be better defined areas of responsibility. I'm not saying silos. I'm saying areas of responsibility, which actually speed decision making, because the CEO is no longer the bottleneck, or the chief operating officer is no longer the bottleneck. There's kind of lanes that folks are operating in, which allows decision making to move faster. Right. The language of the organization changes.
Yeah.
So the communications methods change, the language changes, it becomes a little bit more structured. There is reporting. There's things like flash reports where you can kind of see how we're doing. You know what you're supposed to be doing. You can measure it. That's, to me, like as you're moving that direction, that's where the initial, okay, we're institutionalizing. We're becoming a more strategically focused organization. That's how I can tell, is I just start seeing things look, and folks go, oh my God, it's gotten corporate. And I'm like, no, it actually has gotten organized. Yeah. And we're able to measure and manage the key components.
Yeah. Well, the word that came up for me is clarity.
There you go.
It got clear. Everyone's clear on what they're supposed to be doing and why we're doing it. Yep. And then there's I'm trying to think of the leading indicators. I think, do you have a plan at all? Number one, are people clear on the plan? Do they know about it? Because you might know about it, but does the rest of the organization, down to your, manager, rank and file folks, know about it? Do they know how their day-to-day fits into that plan? And then some of these other pieces, the structural pieces, the people, all of those, are they in place? Might be like a leading indicator. And then you're going to have to fine tune and tweak them over time, but just having some of these things in place.
The specificity around however you want to put it, performance management, corporate performance management, however you want to put that scorecard, you have developed theoretically some pretty specific metrics. You're either achieving them or you're not. And so that's going to be a good indicator of whether that's going to persist. As far as leading indicators go, it's, it could be, I guess it could be as simple as, whether you're achieving the fundamentals of your plan, whether it's revenue growth or profitability, and seeing customers churn, seeing customer growth, seeing more sales on the top of your funnel, whatever that is. Ultimately, that kind of thing is where you're going to say, okay, I'll convert that to business and profitability. But if you're not achieving those top of funnel things, or, kind of like the building blocks, so to speak, of how you achieve your business goals, then you got to address that out the gate, no doubt.
And a meta example would be, I remember when we first implemented the flash report, one of everyone's first goals was to confirm or check if what we were measuring was the appropriate thing to be measuring. Hey, we set out for these KPIs, but are they the right thing after a quarter or two or a couple cycles? Where it's that one's pretty good, but this one does not tell us what we needed to know. We missed that over here. Let's change our tools. So that fine tuning piece, and I think too, there's the whole culture piece. So when the whole bunch of change goes down, in my experience, you're going to lose some folks just out of the swing of the change, which is not necessarily bad. But then after things stabilize and settle out to whatever they're going to be, do you have a whole bunch of voluntary turnover? Do you have a whole bunch of people fired? Or is your culture fairly stable? You're always going to have attrition. But looking at some of those...
Well, and customers too. I mean, customers can be a part of your, respond to your culture, or bought into your culture, and that's why they're a customer. So I think internal and external factors like that, if you see degradation, you got a problem. And you mentioned, you see people sort of not get with program culturally and leave. Well, that, as many times as not, that's the founder themselves. That's why it's super important, getting back, kind of hammering this home, is that alignment up front is is this going to be something that both parties are, gonna lock arms on for the long term? And as much as you can do your diligence on that, gives you an indication of okay, this has a possibility of success. But if it's going to failure to launch, could be a lot of money wasted if that doesn't work out. So.
And how long do you have to show growth? Or what would tell a PE from, okay, now we have demonstrable data set of look, this thing has gone from X to Y. We're on the career path, or we're on the track. We can sell the dream. Let's go do this thing.
You mean from the standpoint of whether a founder's gotten the business to a certain point, or are you saying post-acquisition by the PE group? Because those are two different. Okay.
So if a PE group is saying, okay, I came in, it was undervalued, I'm putting in talent and treasure, and we're getting all these internal things that we just talked about in place. And now I'm starting to see it for a quarter and 2 quarters. And now it's been like 18 months of this.
The shortest I've heard is 18 months is basically they look at it and go, okay, I've gotten through a year end. I've had that year audited, and then I've got another quarter or two to show that it's not a fluke. And in some cases, when PE firms have somebody who they've managed to take from, an 8%, 10% growth rate to a 30, 40, 50% growth rate in that 18 months, that's exactly when they're going to hit the chutes and they're out. Look, we got this thing, it's really humming. They're going to get a premium on that. They may double their money in 18 months in that scenario or more. And that's when because to some extent, a 50% growth rate is not, or 30% growth rate annualized is not sustainable. No. And so you're also going, okay, let me pass this off to generally it'll be a strategic. Yeah. We'll be able to go, okay, we either want to take this pesky person out of the market, or we want to expand into that space, and there's synergies enough for us to be able to at least see a really nice return on this investment. But 18 months is about as short as I've seen it. And then, in some cases it's a couple turns of the worm.
Gets a little long on the tooth, as you've said. I mean, I like that. That's a very practical, realistic answer. I think I was just going to say, you really get an indication as to whether you're following the business plan, like if that could, where are you at after a year? Here was the business plan that was laid out. Are you achieving it? Or are you far under it? Like, what's the problem? Is your thesis working out? That sort of thing. But yeah, I'd say, I've never really heard of hold periods less than 18 months or like really longer than like 7 years, but by 7 years though, the likelihood of you having turnover management multiple times is very high. So it's like, as somebody that's been in a business that's gone through this a couple times, like, the thought of a 7-year period is, that's long.
Yeah, if you're in a 7-year hold period, it's probably the CEO, CFO role probably looks similar to the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I was just gonna say sports. Like head coach, especially these days, is a really good analogy to CEOs and these types of businesses. Like if you can't prove it out in 2 years under your watch, you're gone for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
all right. On that happy note, now, listener, you know more about what it actually takes to grow a business.
Well, these people tend to land on their feet, so they might get their next contract somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, so
they usually do just fine. They usually do just fine. Very cool. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Rory.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.